Welcome back to Things Matter podcast, and I'm your host, Suzanne Morrow. And I was thinking today about remembering. We're going through some crazy times. There's a lot of confusion out there, and we talked about that before, where left is right and up is down, and there's so much uncertainty, seemingly uncertainty in the world, and it's very confusing to find peace and find rest and to have confidence that everything's going to be okay. And I was reading in Joshua, which really impacted me this morning, and it reminded me of remembering. And I thought I would remind you today of remembering as well, because if you remember the story, Joshua was leading. The story of Joshua is amazing, but I'm going to pick up right in Joshua 5. Joshua has just led the Israelites across the Jordan River. It was parted. God parted the Jordan River, and they were able to cross into the promised land. This is after they had wandered for 40 years in the desert due to their disobedience, and they're not remembering who God is and what he says. And that was after them being in captivity for 430 some years with the Egyptians. So God had delivered them from the Egyptians. God parted the Red Sea for these people so that they could get away from the Egyptians. An actual sea parted, and they walked on dry land across the sea to get to the other side. And then through their disobedience and their non-belief, they ended up wandering for 40 years in the desert. It's a great story. You should read it. It's, Deuteronomy and then the parts of Joshua. But it's a great story to read, just to remember. If you haven't read it, you should read it. It's just an amazing story of our history. But even though this happened, thousands of years ago, the reality of the truth of who God is then is just as important now, because it's the same God now. So there's a part of the story that was the most impactful for me, and I'm going to read it to you because I don't have it memorized. But it's Joshua 5:13. It says, "Now when Joshua was near Jericho," because they had just parted, gone through the Jordan River. God had parted that, and some things had happened, but they were getting ready to attack and take over Jericho. Joshua was near Jericho. He looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in front of him. And Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" And this answer is the most profound part. The man said, "Neither. But as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." So this was the commander of the army of the Lord. And if you know the story, Jericho was well fortified. It was an amazing city. And the Israelites were not well equipped to take over a city like that. And so how was God going to pull that off? I'm sure Joshua was wondering that, but I'm sure his confidence was in the Lord, because he had just parted the Jordan and had just done all those amazing things to get the Israelites to where they were. And he comes across this man standing in the road with a sword across him. And the man says, I'm for neither, but I'm for the Lord. And so right then, it was a reminder of Joshua that the Lord was on his side, and the Lord's will is what was the most important thing. So why I'm talking about remembering is this story was so long ago, but we need to always remember to remember. Because when you think about the Israelites, they firsthand experienced the parting of the Jordan, the parting of the Red Sea, miracle after miracle. They experienced them with their own two eyes, and they still forgot and began grumbling and looking sideways and forgetting who God was. We're in our age. This is thousands of years later. We don't actually physically haven't seen those, but we have the good book to remind us and tell us of the stories. We need to choose to remember and have faith in those stories, just as the Israelites should have then, and then went on to, for the most part, for a little while after they crossed the Jordan. But it's just a great story of remembrance of how and who is in command, who is in charge. When things are looking so desperate in our country and in the world right now, we need to remember who is on the throne and who the commander is. And, even more, taking that to my personal life, I have to admit, I live my life in ways where I am not looking like I'm remembering who God is, and I'm relying on myself, and then fear comes in because I'm not relying on the truth of the word. And so, to trust, to obey God's covenants, to remember, the stories, to celebrate everything he's done is something we should do daily. And sometimes, when they're amidst of something, we need to do it moment by moment. And right now, with things going on in the world, it might be more like moment by moment, remembering who God is and that He is still on the throne, and all the outcomes will give glory to Him. And that's how it's all going to turn out, because it's already written, it's already going to happen, it's all done. So I just want to remind you to remember, just like the story, and it's a great story. It's good. If you haven't read it, it's good to go read it, because it's a great story. To remind me to remember, and then celebrate what I remember. Celebrate who God is. Celebrate how He has been for us all of these thousands of years, and how He will continue to be into eternity, and to trust that, and to walk on that, and to live in a way that is pleasing to God, and He knows that we are remembering who He is. So I thought I would share that with you today, as I'm remembering to remember. I hope you remember to remember too. And I hope you know that I really do believe that things matter today for your tomorrow. And I'm so glad you joined with me today. And if you would like to know how you can subscribe or follow me more directly, so that you know when I broadcast, you can go to my website, which is thingsmatterpodcast.com. And all of the ways that you can either listen to me on podcast or YouTube or any other way, they're all listed. They're all the different ways that you can be notified when I do a broadcast. If you'd like to be notified, are there as well. And I'd love to have you join me next time. So hopefully this helped you as much as it helped me. And I'm hoping you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.